This is following the TEDx Talk, How Unicorns Wind Up in a Straitjacket. Hi, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Unicorns Have Got Out of a Straitjacket. That is to say, super talented people who are perhaps not in the right role for them, and therefore they feel restricted and confined as you would do in a straitjacket. Today, I've got a very interesting guest because it's not the typical episode. We're going to be discussing the making of a unicorn that doesn't even go into a straitjacket. So this is super exciting for me. So please give a warm welcome to Matinat Ajeigbe. Thank you, Matinat, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Hi.
Hi. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So as you've already said, my name is Matinat. I did my undergrad in accounting, and I started off work not necessarily in the accounting field, actually. I got a bit of I joined a graduate program where I got to sort of move around, and I ended up in training. And this led me to, pursue a master's in human resources. And that's currently where I am. Yeah.
Fantastic. Wow. What was the graduate program like? How did you feel going into a graduate program?
I did my, undergrad in accounting. A part of me always felt that I wasn't necessarily sure that I wanted to, start a career there. Right. And so I'd always been very interested in graduate programs because that idea of being able to rotate in different units or divisions to get to experience all these different parts of working and then finally decide, I liked that idea very much because I felt that as much as you might be interested in something in theory, when you get into it practically, there might be things that you might not like. And so that was it. So I found this, I got an opportunity to join this graduate program at a, boutique consulting firm in Lagos. And excuse me. And yes, so I got there, I got to work a bit in their strategy unit, their people consulting unit, their digital tech consulting unit, and their training unit. And I would say that these opportunities were very, very useful in just opening my eyes to all the different aspects of working that I didn't get from a theoretical point of view. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. I love the pick and mix, as you say, version of the graduate program, because it really gives you, it almost shortens the trial and error period that most people go into in finding it. So that's pretty cool. There you go. That's some piece of advice. If you're a little bit lost.
You're unsure. Just go for a graduate program.
There you go. Fast tracking the life lessons. Right. So tell us about your career journey then. Where did it start? Have you always wanted to be in accounting and HR? How did you end up here?
So I think that my story is quite similar to a lot of, I would generalize here, it might not necessarily be the case, but quite a lot of African kids where I was inspired by what my parents did. Growing up, you sort of you idolize your parents. You're like, oh, I want to be that when I grow up. And my dad, I used to think was an accountant. He actually wasn't. He was a banker. But and I was like, I want to be an accountant when I grow up, just like daddy. And that sort of started my career journey, and I was very much on that track. I got into my undergrad uni, Aston University in Birmingham in the UK. And I did the 4 years and I got out and I was like, do I really want to be an accountant? And I would say the first time I questioned it was actually so my undergrad, my bachelor's degree required us to do a placement year. And
Yeah.
I would say the first time I questioned that choice was during my placement year, because unlike my peers who did their placement in accounting firms, both big and small, I ended up doing mine at a university in Tokyo, in Tokyo, Japan. As an English TA. Yeah, Toyogakuen, yeah. As an English TA. And I remember that year, I think back to that year, and it brings so many fond memories because I enjoyed every moment of it.
Yes.
Even though I had never taught before, even though my first experience was what I felt was what I classed as a disaster. You know, I have never having the experience before, but every subsequent experiences were amazing. I enjoyed the ability to connect with my students, you know, to feel like I was helping people and to see how I was helping them. And that was sort of the first time I had like a bit of a questioning moment in my head that, this seems nice, you know, this ability to connect directly with people and see how what I'm doing is affecting them and see the happiness it brings. It actually seems nice. But, you know, I was still very much on this accounting career path. And I was like, yeah, this is fine. You know, we'll put it aside.
Right.
And then I graduated and I went back to my home country, Nigeria, where I had to do like a service year where I worked for 1 year. That led me to work in the pensions division of a HR unit in a bank. It was a lot of admin stuff, so I wouldn't really say I got a lot of connection to the HR part of it. But things really did switch when I joined Phillips Consulting, where I did my graduate program. And I, you know, like I said, I rotated through all these divisions, and some I loved a lot more than others. Others I just knew that, yeah, this is not gonna be for me. It's great, I enjoyed the experience, but I knew this was not a long-term career goal for me. And I remember when I was choosing, I was literally stuck between a rock and a hard place, because I thought, people consulting, that seems amazing, but training as well seems so good. And it was a bit of a struggle to choose, but I ended up in the training unit, you know. And I think it was at that point that I finally made that decision, that conscious decision, because I had been looking to do a master's, and I had thought that I was going to do my master's in finance, and I was adamant that that's where I was going to do it. And then I sat down and I was like, actually, you know what? HR doesn't seem like a bad option, you know? And yeah, that's pretty much what led me to where I currently am and where I hopefully will be going.
Oh, wonderful. I love how adamant you were about finance. And then
I really was. Nobody could tell me anything.
You're going to be daddy's accountant. But actually, in a way, they're quite similar, because HR, most people don't realize, it can be a very strategic role in an organization, just like finance, just like marketing, whatever it is. But of course, all the job functions contribute towards the organization's objectives. But HR, depending on, as we were saying, which strand of HR you go into, that but again, as you said, it's very broad as a strand. So that's very interesting. How are you finding what you've done so far?
You know, like you said, I always really didn't see the strategic aspect of HR. And one thing that my course is currently, you know, showing me is that it is actually a very strategic, you know, it's a strategic line of business, and it needs to be pushed forward a lot more. It's also showing that there's so many different aspects to HR. Like, we see it as like this small stream, but it's so broad, which has made my decision a bit more difficult, but it's also fun as well to have a lot of options. Yeah.
Fantastic. And can you tell us a little bit about the emotional and psychological journey you've been on in in trying to figure out what the right career path is for you? Because I know that most people tend to feel lost, or maybe everyone knows what they want to do and I don't, and I'm still searching. How does that feel for you?
You know, that last statement, you take the words right out of my mouth. I have quite a few, you know, friends, acquaintances that they've always known what they wanted to do. They've always known their strengths. They've just, you know, it's like, this is what I want to do and this is where I'm going. And I remember at some point I thought that was me, but also, like I said, I had those doubts.
Yeah.
And when I finally took up those doubts, I remember feeling so jealous of these people, going, wow, I love how you just know what you want to do. You know, you from the moment you were conscious, you just knew that this was what I wanted to do. But then I've also been lucky enough to meet people who it took them years to figure out what they wanted to do. It took them, you know, so many different transitions before they realized, actually, this is where my strengths lie. This is what I definitely know I want to go ahead with. And so I would definitely say that there were moments I felt lost. But there were moments I also, you know, felt adamant that I needed to stick with what I had started with, you know, that thing of not wanting to drop what you literally spent your whole life planning to do.
Yeah. It's the sunk cost of
literally all those years, all the academic, all the money spent, and I'm just gonna like up and leave. Like, no. But I think I'm slowly beginning to accept my decision. And like you said, it's not even certain that this is where I'm going to stay. And I've accepted that fact. And I'm okay with that fact. I'm okay that maybe a couple years down the line, I'll wake up and say, maybe this is actually not what I want to do. And I divert somewhere, because eventually that is life, isn't it? Like, it's like a roller coaster. 1 minute you're up, 1 minute you're down, you know. You never really know where you're going, which is the fun part of it.
Absolutely. Like, it's funny you say roller coaster. I see it as a heartbeat. It's up and down in that regard. But I think, especially when I'm working with clients, one thing I tell people is, and I'm going to say this as I would say to my clients, because I think the viewers already know me, it's life. You can't fuck it up, really. It's one of these things where one degree that you've done or one area of studies is a building block for another, and it's not a complete start again. And you know, when people view it as, oh my god, I'm going to throw these years away, or this whole degree, I'm not using it at all. Of course you're using it in one way or another. You're using it. It's at least landed you in this way. Even if you're retraining in a different aspect, you're building on what you already know. So I definitely think that that's one important thing that people should take away from your story, about building on it, and you become a double threat.
Pretty much, you know. That's it.
Okay, so now we're gonna go on to the TEDx talk. So this, as we said before, it's based on how unicorns wind up in the straitjacket TED talk, and within the talk we outline 3 steps in choosing the right career for you. So we're going to explore that with you in your story. So what would you say the first step were, the clues for you? What were you good at as a child? What's your natural genius? What were you complimented on?
So as a child, I was actually quite, I would say I was quite introverted. Okay. I enjoyed, you know, burying myself in a book. I was actually quite uncomfortable around other people. So I used sort of like just a book to just create this almost like just, you know, a little bubble for myself. And I used to think that, okay, that meant that I didn't like dealing with people. You know, I didn't like interacting with people. But, you know, over the years, I've come and I thought about it. And actually, I realized what I did enjoy about reading was the ability to transport myself into this fictional world where anything was possible. You know, they would come up with the most outrageous problems or just situations, and these people would just be going ahead with it, trying to find a solution, no holds bars. And I remember I would put myself in the situation of the main character,
Right.
dealing with all these problems and all these scenarios. And I loved how they were just always able to find a solution, even when it seemed like there was no way to move forward. They were able to come out of. See, I tended to
Happy
read
endings.
books that had happy endings. I was not trying to, like my mystery book, they always had to solve the mystery. They always had to solve the crime. And sitting down and thinking about it, I think for me that was probably a clue, that ability that I enjoyed not being put in a box. I enjoyed that ability to be able to think outside the box and have no restrictions, and nothing was impossible, ultimately. I think that was probably what sort of I carried as a mindset as a kid. And what those books allowed me to carry as a mindset as a kid. So even if reality made it seem as if you had to fit in a box, and when you reached a certain point, there was just no moving forward. In these fictional worlds, those rules did not apply. And I love that, about it. And I think I sort of started to internally embody that as well. So I would say probably that was a major clue for me.
You know what? As an author myself, that's the biggest compliment you can give a writer. It just,
Yeah.
I'm just listening to you and I'm thinking, whoever you're talking about, they need to know this. They need to know that their book did this for you. That is awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
And I love that you've been able to introspect and see what that reading did for you. So wonderful. And what were the dots do you think you connected from your zone of genius in terms of your hobbies, lifestyle openness, and maybe the criteria for choosing a career now? How does that work?
So I would link this to something that really did come a bit, not necessarily in the earlier days, but later on, which is my placement year, as I mentioned earlier. Honestly, I think that year, without realizing it, was such a eureka moment for me, because, like I said, I grew up an introvert, and even though as the years went by, I realized I actually do enjoy people. I might not enjoy large groups of people, but I enjoy being in small, intricate groups where we get to sort of rub minds and just chill and enjoy each other's company. That year made me realize that I enjoyed connecting with people.
Wow.
I enjoyed seeing the impact of what I did, how little decisions that didn't work, didn't take a lot from me, how huge an impact it had on other people. And, so one thing that we had in at Toyogakwan was we had like an English speaking corner where students would come, and it was just a way for them to feel comfortable practicing English. Now, I'm obviously a natural English speaker, so for me, speaking English is it's not a new thing. It doesn't take anything from me, but just being able to speak with these people and tell them that, oh wow, that was a really good sentence, like you said that perfectly, and you would see the glow in their face, like just that
Oh,
happiness that, oh wow, I did that, and these comments took nothing out of me, and they were genuine comments that I felt they deserved.
yeah.
And so I think that was it for me, where I was like, you know what, whatever I end up doing in life, it needs to be something that I'm able to, if possible. Obviously, I know that I can't always see the impact of what I do, but if possible, even if it's just one person, just see that positive impact that what I'm doing has on that one person. And for me, that's it. I'm good. Like it. I sit down, I think about it, and like I said, there was no moment where I felt, when you're working and there are moments where you feel that, oh, you wake up and like, even if it's just one day and like, oh, I have to go to work.
Yeah.
The year I was there was not one day I felt that way.
Oh, wow.
And that was a full year of working. And I was like, you know what? No, I need whatever I end up doing in life, whatever it may be, I need it to have that impact on my life, And so I think, yeah, that was sort of the connecting dots. And I was just like, yeah,
Sure.
okay.
I mean, you've just spoken about doing work that fulfills you, and
Yeah.
how beautiful is that feeling? And you described it so passionately and so well. I have nothing to add to that. That's awesome. So how do you think in your line of work now, this is the third step, applying this natural genius into your line of work, how do you think that will come into fruition?
Well, I have started this new journey in HR, and honestly, HR is one thing. HR is the people. Whatever you do, whatever whatever you're thinking about, you always have to think about people, everybody involved, yourself, both the upper management, lower management, middle management. You have to consider everybody, and your decision is going to impact everybody in one way or the other. So for a fact, I know that what I'm doing and where I'm going is I am walking down a path that requires me to connect with people and to think up what people might consider outrageous solutions to bring that smile on people's faces and make life easier for people. And ultimately, I think that's sort of the path I've decided that I want to walk. Wherever that leads me, whatever that may be, I know that one thing will forever remain in my mind and in my heart, and it's just, how can I bring a smile onto people's faces? How can I make it? Because obviously, with so many stakeholders involved, that you can never make everybody happy. But at least, how can I sort of reach a middle ground where nobody's extremely dissatisfied? And I think for me, that's what I've decided that my goal is, how to continuously improve people's lives and get them to where they want to go without other people losing in the process.
Wow. That sounds very formidable. That's the word, formidable. I like that. So finally, to round out, what would you say to someone who's on a similar journey, or maybe at the beginning of their journey? What would you say to them? What's the one piece of advice?
I would say, don't put yourself in a box. We're human. This is life. We're humans. This is life. You're not supposed to fit in a box. It's okay if you don't fit in a box. It's okay if your interests vary. The way the world is moving, it's so interesting that you're able to connect the most random things and bring them into one role. Those kind of roles exist. So don't think that, oh, I like this, which is in this extreme, and I like this, which is in this extreme, and I can't bring them together. No, start it. If it doesn't exist, then be the one to start it. And yeah, that's all I have to say, really.
Design your career. I love that.
Pretty much, that's it.
I love that so much. It's pretty much exactly what I would say. So I love that you said that. Thank you so much.
Don't be a unicorn in a straitjacket.
You said.